Now, what am I going to give Manhunter by Chris Ryan? On the coffee cup scale, I'm going to give Manhunter... Hello, and welcome to Bri's Book and Film. Today we're going to be talking about a book, and the book we're going to be talking about is Manhunter by Chris Ryan, the #1 best-selling SAS hero. I do like Chris Ryan an awful lot. This come up on Spotify, and I thought, yeah, I'll give that a go. Bit of Chris Ryan can't be bad. So I listened to it on Spotify, and I read the book. I bought the book. On the back, let's see. When foreign governments act like gangsters, a new kind of SAS is needed. In London, assassins carry out a deadly chemical weapons attack at the royal wedding. All the signs point to a Kremlin-sanctioned hit. Their victim, a notorious mobster. The Cell is a shadowy unit within the SAS dedicated to fighting global organised crime in a world where the Russian government is the real mob. It's the job of The Cell to defend British interests at home and abroad. Only the elite are selected. Only the very best will survive. For SAS Staff Sergeant Josh Bowman, whose young family was brutally murdered by an Albanian crime gang, is a chance for revenge and to bury his secret opioid addiction. But the Russians have only just begun. When The Cell uncovers a sinister plot against a British-backed tyrant in Africa, they are quickly drawn into a deadly race against time. Outnumbered and outgunned, Bowman and his comrades are all that stand between Moscow and ultimate victory. Nobody takes you to the action better than Ryan, says the Evening Standard. So that's the blurb on the back. The #1 on Spotify, it said the brand new best-selling red hot. I don't know when this book was published, so I don't know how new it actually is. So there we go. So that's the book which I bought. After hearing the story on Spotify, I bought it so I could read it, because I do like to have physical copies of books. I'll put that over there for a minute. So, the main protagonist of the book is Josh Bowman, Staff Sergeant. He's on protection detail at the royal wedding that I've just mentioned, and he foils an assassination attempt on President Ken the Viper Suguma from Karatandu. Him and his two, there's 4 or 5 men on the protection detail. And in the wake of one of the villains being assassinated with Novichok, the highly deadly nerve agent, Josh gets recruited by John Mallet into the Cell, which is a sort of subdivision of the SAS. Where they learn Freddie Lang is the murdered mobster, and his twin brother David, I believe his name is. It was quite way back in the book. Are assisting President Suguma, arranging and facilitating a meeting with the Russian mob. It all gets a bit murky. It all gets a bit murky, as these thrillers do, when the Russians are involved and there's spies involved and there's a subplot involved. So while the Cell team are in the apartment with David Lang to feed his opioid addiction, Josh is mooching around the medicine cabinet, trying to score something, because he's craving it. He's got the cold turkey, the sweats, etc. And he gets attacked by one of Lang's associates. they sort of scrape out of it eventually, but it's not helped by Josh Bowman looking for drugs, for opioids. He's on opioids after the loss of his family. His wife and daughter were brutally murdered by the Albanian mob, as it says on the back of the book, and he has to live with that, because before Josh became a soldier, he was a policeman with the Met Police, and that's sort of what attracted the Albanian mob to his family in the first place, to teach him a lesson. Now this is a really, really good story. It's a great book. It's a great story. It paces really well, and Chris Ryan knows about the army. He knows about battle. He's served his country with honours, and you know, he's done a really good job. Chris Ryan was famously the one that got away in the Bravo 20 patrol that sort of went awry. I've covered Bravo 20, and Chris Ryan knows all about war, battle, gunfights, contacts. Now there is one problem with this book. The one problem is, as well as the opioids causing Josh to be distracted in Lang's apartment in Monte Carlo, he's also distracted when they go to the presidential mansion in Karatandu, which causes the death of 2 other people. Anyway, see, this is what happens. I always get distracted. But as good as this story is, and as good as Chris Ryan builds the tension, because it's a slow build, it's a steady build. You're always wanting to come back, put your earphones in, and listen more. You want the story. You know, you can't put it down. Now, as good as the pacing is, as good as the building of the tension is, there is a lot of what I would think extraneous detail. Because, and I find that distracting. We know that, I mean, I don't know anything about bullets and guns, but I do know that 7.62 is big. 7.62 is a big round. I don't need the exact measurements of the 7.62 by 4.5 mils or whatever. I don't need the extra detail. I know what an AK-47 is. I know what a sniper rifle is. You know, for me personally, I find the extraneous detail, it's just irrelevant. It's just irrelevant. I don't need the technical specs of weapons and sights and scopes and everything else. For me, that's a distraction. For me, it slows the story down. A good story gets slowed down. But don't let that put you off. Don't let that put you off, because Manhunter does build to a really, really good climax right at the end. There is, of course, the usual switch, the flick, that's you know, the twist in the tail. You know, I'm not going to tell you what that is. I'm not going to spoil it, but it does pace beautifully. If you can overlook, for me, if overlooking the extra nonsense that's sort of thrown in, you know, and this is no disrespect to Chris Ryan, because, you know, he's as good a writer as he was a soldier, so, you know, I can't criticize his writing, the storytelling, but just for me, just leave out the extra. I don't need to know manufactured specific scopes. I don't need to know, because for me it makes no difference. It makes no difference who manufactures the scope. It's just a scope. Only ex-soldiers and ex-special forces are going to appreciate what that means. And if they're in the special forces, are they going to be reading about the special forces? Because they wouldn't be interested in the special forces, because they're in the special forces. So yeah, so Manhunter by Chris Ryan, it's a really good story. Josh Bowman is the flawed protagonist. He's the flawed hero of the story. He does make some mistakes along the way. He's not perfect. He's got an opioid addiction which does cause distractions. And, you know, it is a really good story. And I'm glad that I gave it a chance on Spotify. And I'm glad that I bought the physical copy. Now, what am I going to give Manhunter by Chris Ryan? On the coffee cup scale, I'm going to give Manhunter 4 hot coffee cups. 4 hot coffee cups. It would be 5 hot coffee cups, but I've knocked one off because of the extra detail which I found to be distracting from the story. So 4 hot coffee cups. If it hadn't been for all the extra bits, it would have been an easy 5. Buy Manhunter by Chris Ryan. Buy it on paperback like I did. Listen to it on Spotify like I did. You will not be disappointed. It's a good story, paces well, builds to a really good climax right at the end. But like I say, 4 hot coffee cups, which would have been a very easy 5, but I'm being a bit harsh on this one. So, as with all Chris Ryan books, they're all worth reading. I've read a few that I've not talked about yet, but I've read a few Chris Ryan books over the years, and they've all been top spec books. So definitely listen to it on Spotify. Buy the paper or buy the physical copy, not necessarily the paperback, but buy the physical copy. You won't be disappointed. If you've read Manhunter by Chris Ryan, feel free to comment. If you've not read it but want to, feel free to comment. If you couldn't care less either way, then do what you want to do. But yeah, so join me next time when we'll either be talking about a book or a film. You'll have to find out next time. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.